Let me go to case study number 2. Another client, and the story goes like this, that this doctor really drank the Kool-Aid about realizing how much they were losing on these PPO fees. So this client decided to contact all of the PPO plans. Now, didn't contact the PPO plans because you're not allowed to do this. But this client decided to no longer accept any new PPO patients. No new ones. None. And by the way, that's disallowed. That's not allowed under your PPO contract. You have to be available to see new clients, new patients. But this client decided, I'm going to just turn it off because it's making me bleed, when I see a new patient. So I'm not going to accept new patients. And so when a patient would call from whatever insurance company, from Delta, from Travelers, from Aetna, from Blue Cross Blue Shield, from MetLife, I'm sorry, we're not accepting new patients. Now, also did not do any marketing to replace where those new patients were from. 85% of this practice's patients were coming from the PPO plans. Now, they were still calling, but because they decided not to accept them in the practice, because that would just continue the bleeding, they had no new patient flow, literally none, no new patient flow. And it only took about 3 months in this practice to have the same result that this other client did, where the schedule got empty very quick because no new patients. New patients are the lifeblood of a thriving practice.
Right.
And in this case, the fix was actually, so she became, this is also a female dentist, she became a client, said, help, I have totally messed this up. And I mean, that's the DIY, the DIY patient that, was having trouble doing their own, smile direct case, doing their own orthodontics. And the good news is it was actually an easier fix in that one because all we did was turn back on the flow of new patients. And meanwhile, now we're building marketing. They became an Echo client, and now patients are coming from Google instead of the PPO plans. And now we're back on track. It was about a 3-month speed bump, less financially disastrous. It still was not a good financial time for the practice, but we're recovering. I started thinking, do it yourself. Remember, when the stakes are high, you may not want to do it yourself because the costs of making a mistake in that area would be a multiple of, paying to have it done or getting the counsel to have done right.
I mean, imagine I'm a patient who thinks I can do it myself and I never go see a dentist. So imagine, I think, I hate to say this, Steve Jobs, I think people knew he had cancer, but he didn't want to go and see the doctors who could have saved his life. He was like, oh, I don't believe in Western medicine. I want to do my own thing. And he was just futzing around. At least that's the story. I don't know if it's true or not. And a lot of people believe that had he gotten the right help at the right time with the kind of money he had, it's not a money issue, right? It's really, it's just like, I think he's a do-it-yourselfer, right? Of course, he built iPhone and blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, he couldn't save his own life, It's
well, when the stakes are high, you may want to consider whether do-it-yourself is a good strategy.
Yeah. So Gary, I just have been thinking while you were speaking, Gary, and I was just thinking, this is just an idea that I have. You and I have heard hundreds of these stories, right? Because a lot of times, especially for you in coaching or even in marketing, like you gave the second example, it starts with somebody messing up and then we are asked to rescue them and, get them to the other side. Of course, we do it because we believe we can help them and so forth, but it's a lot more painful for the client. Like you said, that particular client lost probably $600,000, which is 30 times what they would have paid in coaching fees because they were trying to save $20,000. So yeah, they saved 20,000, but they lost 600,000 and caused all kinds of anguish and pain. And when a practice is going down, your good people leave. So it's not just a numbers problem,
another thing that happened in that first example was quite literally over time, she had to replace individuals left because they felt like I don't want to be part of a sinking ship. And she had to rebuild an entire team as well. That was just another, consequence to that.
Right. So what if we share, not hundreds, but maybe a handful of examples, different examples of how, maybe we can call it DIY series, do it yourself series. And we can share these examples and really, really talk about the impact. I think the reason people make this mistake, and in that first example that cost 600,000, is because she never understood the impact of her do-it-yourself decision. Well, Gary says you can do it, and it's not that bad. But what she didn't pay attention to is you have to do it right. So she left the word right. She did it wrong, and it cost her $600,000, right?
Yeah, I think your idea is a great one because as I was prepping for today's episode, I actually had many examples come to mind, and I only picked two of them to talk about here. So sure, there's a bunch of useful information here. Let's do it. Let's call it the DIY series. Let's do it. Let's you and I decide what the frequency is on that and bring it up, and with the whole goal of helping any of our listeners save pain and suffering. Want to help you avoid that, whenever possible. Well, Naren, this has been a fun episode. You had to have been living in a cave to not realize that Smile Direct Club failed because it was all over the news, and it will continue to be on the news for a while yet. And kind of maybe start to think about some examples of doctors that have pursued their own do-it-yourself strategies when it comes to resigning from insurance. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you benefit from this. Hey, sometimes the best way, a motivating way, is to have some failure, but better if you can experience that vicariously. Experience it through the failure of others, so you don't have to experience it yourself. Maybe that could be the theme as you and I think about, the examples we'll use in that DIY series. So we'll help you experience it vicariously, so you don't have to actually experience it in your own practice, in your own situation. Well, Naren, as usual, thank you for your support on the podcast. Thanks for all you and Equa do to help dentists attract quality new patients. And thanks to all of our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't done it already, be sure to hit subscribe. When you hit subscribe on the Less Insurance Dependence podcast, it's free. It just means that every Thursday when we upload a new episode, it'll be automatically uploaded to your listening device of choice. Thank you for the privilege of your time today. Naren and I look forward to connecting with you on the next Less Insurance Dependence podcast.